The Galactic Military Academy's training grounds had seen many species pass through its halls, but none had caused quite as much chaos as the Kithar cubs. Commander Serac stood at the observation deck, his 4 eyes tracking the latest disaster unfolding below. The reptilian officer's scales rippled with barely contained frustration as another cadet limped away from the containment field, nursing wounds that would take days to heal even with advanced medical technology. The cubs were a diplomatic nightmare wrapped in fur and fangs. When the Kithar Empire had joined the Galactic Coalition, they'd insisted on a cultural exchange program. Part of that program involved training exercises with their young, predators that wouldn't reach maturity for another cycle, but were already apex hunters on their homeworld. The cubs were meant to teach cadets about working with dangerous fauna, about respecting the natural order of species far more physically gifted than most spacefaring races. Instead, they had become a rite of passage that nearly every cadet failed. Serac watched as Cadet Thelmoon, a promising Ventari warrior with enhanced exoskeletal plating, approached the containment field. The Ventari were known for their martial prowess, their ability to interface directly with combat armor, their centuries of military tradition. Thelmoon had graduated top of his combat class. He lasted 47 seconds. The 2 Kithar cubs, each roughly the size of a Terran wolf but far more intelligent and infinitely more aggressive, moved like liquid shadow. One feinted left while the other struck from above, a coordinated attack that spoke of instincts honed over millions of years of evolution. Thelmoon's advanced reflexes meant nothing. His enhanced strength was useless. The cubs treated him like a toy, batting him between them until he stumbled out of the containment field, pride more wounded than body. "Commander," one of his assistants spoke softly, "perhaps we should reconsider this exercise. We've had 43 attempts this cycle alone. No one has lasted more than 2 minutes." Serac's tail twitched, a sign of agreement he wouldn't voice aloud. The cubs weren't meant to be defeated. They were meant to teach humility, to show cadets that not every problem could be solved with force or technology. But watching his students fail repeatedly was taking its toll on morale. "One more cadet has requested an attempt," the assistant continued, reading from her datapad. "Lieutenant Arya Ven, human, transferred from the Terran Defense Initiative 3 cycles ago." Serac's scales darkened with concern. Humans were the newest members of the Galactic Coalition, and their reputation was complicated. They were neither the strongest nor the fastest species. Their technology was decades behind most others. They had no natural armor, no enhanced sensory organs, no remarkable physical gifts that would make them suitable for military service. And yet, they kept volunteering for the most dangerous assignments. "Has Lieutenant Ven reviewed the previous attempts?" Serac asked. "All 43, sir. She studied them for the past 3 rotations." The commander descended to the training grounds, curiosity overriding his better judgment. He arrived just as Lieutenant Arya Ven stepped up to the containment field. She was unremarkable by galactic standards. Average height for a human, which made her short compared to most species, with brown hair pulled back in a practical manner, and eyes that seemed to take in everything without focusing on anything specific. She carried no weapons, no armor. She'd even removed her standard-issue combat vest. "Lieutenant," Serac called out, "you understand the nature of this exercise? The cubs are not fully mature, but they are still apex predators. They have injured cadets far more physically capable than humans." Arya turned, and Serac was struck by the calmness in her expression. "I understand, Commander. Permission to proceed?" Something in her tone made Serac hesitate, but he gestured his approval. The containment field shimmered as Arya stepped through. What happened next would be discussed in academy halls for generations. The cubs sensed her immediately, their heads snapping toward the human with predatory focus. They separated, beginning their standard attack pattern, the same coordination that had defeated every other cadet. But Arya didn't move into a defensive stance. She didn't prepare to dodge or counterattack. She sat down, cross-legged hands resting loosely on her knees. Arya simply sat in the center of the containment field and waited. The cubs circled, confused by prey that didn't run or fight. One approached, muscles coiled to strike. Then Arya did something that made every observer lean forward in disbelief. She yawned. Not a combat feint or a psychological tactic, a genuine jaw-cracking yawn of someone completely unthreatened. She followed it by lying back on the ground, arms behind her head staring up at the simulation dome as if watching clouds on a lazy afternoon. The first cub pounced but stopped short, hovering over the human with jaws that could crush steel. Arya didn't flinch. She reached up slowly and scratched behind the cub's ear. Sarax's translator implant nearly failed trying to process the sound the cub made. Something between a purr and a growl that spoke of confusion and pleasure. The second cub approached more cautiously, sniffing at the human. Arya's other hand found its snout, rubbing gently in small circles. Within minutes, both cubs, terrors that had sent dozens of trained warriors fleeing, were lying beside the human. One rested its massive head on her stomach. The other curled against her side. They fell asleep. "By the 7 moons," Sarax whispered, his translator barely functioning through his shock. Arya remained there for 20 minutes, gently stroking the cubs as they slept, before carefully extracting herself and leaving the containment field. The cubs barely stirred, content in a way no one had seen since they arrived at the academy. "How?" Sarax demanded as Arya approached. "Every species has tried force, speed, intimidation, technological advantages. How did a human accomplish what no one else could?" Arya shrugged, a peculiarly human gesture. "Commander, on Earth we evolved alongside predators far more dangerous than us. We survived not by being stronger or faster, but by understanding them. Those cubs aren't warriors, they're children far from home, surrounded by strangers, forced to fight constantly to prove themselves." She glanced back at the sleeping forms. They didn't need another opponent. They needed someone to tell them it was okay to rest. Sarax stared at the human, reassessing everything he thought he knew about the species. Perhaps humanity's greatest strength wasn't their stubborn determination or their creative problem-solving. Perhaps it was their uncanny ability to find common ground with any creature in the galaxy, even ones that should have been their natural enemies. "Lieutenant Venn," Sarax said slowly, "how would you like to redesign our interspecies relations curriculum?" Arya smiled. "I thought you'd never ask, Commander." Behind them, the Kithar cubs slept peacefully, having finally found someone who understood that even predators sometimes just needed a gentle hand and a safe place to rest.